Rain. What do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
All right, yo, let's get into it.
Try to take over the world.
Preaching freedom.
Try to take over the world.
And greatest chaplain in the world, Mr.
Try
Lance
to
O'Neill.
take over the world.
Yo. What up, world? It's your boys, the POGs. We are back. It is Sunday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, and we are back for another episode of Two POGs, and we are live. It's your boy, KJ Bradley, and the world's greatest chaplain, Mr. Lance O'Neill. What up, Chappie? How you doing?
Good. How are you? Let's see if anybody joins us in the chat room tonight.
Oh yeah, I don't know. It's getting to be Christmas time and the break. We tend to lose people around the holidays, man. So
you nearly lost me tonight. So
were you cutting out? You getting ready?
No.
Oh.
I'm just joking.
Oh man, listen. I know the wife is up in New York to see her folks, so I got daddy daycare duties for the next week. So it's gonna be fun and games. The kids have already set traps out for the elves. They got surveillance cameras running in the living room because the elves keep disappearing. So, my goal for the week is to survive. That's it. That is the plan. We'll see how that works out. What about you? You guys got any plans for Christmas, or what's the move?
No, my daughter has been in town for the last week, and then she and her husband just went on a cruise. So they drove down to Pensacola today. They sail out tomorrow. And then they'll get back up here like on Christmas, the day before Christmas Eve, I think. So they'll be up here for a few days after that too. So yeah, so they're kind of in for the holidays, which is cool.
That's cool. Get the tribe back together. All right, man. You ready to dive into it? See what's happening?
What do you got?
You know what? Let's start it off with the two-time, what is it? Two-time Times Man of the Year, Mr. Donald J. Trump. This is I don't know. Let's see. He was announced last week for the second time. His first time was, I think, 2016. And with him becoming the incoming POTUS, he just won the award again this year. So Trump is our new Times Man of the Year. I don't really know how significant the award is. I know it's kind of faded to black, but back in the day it used to be a significant award, but now I think the prestige is just kind of like it's kind of iffy, man. You got any thoughts on that, or we'll get into the interview and everything that kind of came off behind it, but just on the initial award of him being the Man of the Year, what do you think?
My first thought is, and as you said it like that, what popped into my head is wasn't Hitler Times Man of the Year in like 1936? See, Trump's doing everything Hitler did. Like the whole when he had the rally at Madison Square Garden, and the whole major news, the mainstream media went off and see, he's doing it just like the Nazis did in the 30s. It's like, just because you do something that somebody else doesn't mean you have the same thoughts, same ideology, same everything. It just means that sometimes time and place are just similar. So yeah, I heard some arguments about, well, how could Kamala Harris not be the person of the year? Well, she lost, so there's one reason.
Yeah.
It seems, I mean, Trump's as good a pick as any. And like you said, does it really matter? Like, who else? If you say, and we're such a short attention span as really globally in a lot of ways, let alone just in the US. Like, if you think, well, what else happened this year? The most major thing is obviously the election. And it's weird to think the election happened 6 weeks ago. It's been like 5-6 weeks already.
Yeah.
And this is why I kind of laugh at some of this stuff. If Trump wins, it's the end of democracy. It's the end of whatever. And my favorite was all the people who voted for Trump voted for the end of democracy. So they participated in a democratic election, and that ends democracy? Like, really? Okay. So I just kind of have to laugh. I don't think Time magazine is. I don't think Time even prints anymore, do they? Isn't it just a digital version?
I don't know. I think they still print. I mean, they would. I would imagine they
Do
still,
they?
I'd imagine so. Now,
They might, but the only thing I can think of seeing when you go through the supermarket, I see the fancy, the fancier booklets of Time magazine when they do, the retrospective, like Time, the 90s in pictures, or Princess Diana in pictures. You know what I'm talking about? Kind of like the fancier magazines, and some of those. I'm curious if somebody collects those, because that actually could end up being a pretty kind of cool collection, just because the way we are digital, there's very, very few people deal with analog. At least I shouldn't say very few people. By contrast, it's few people.
Yeah. Professor Google says yes, Time still has a print edition. So yes, they still do print that you can subscribe to. I think that kind of harkens back to, we've gone away from we don't own anything anymore, right? Like, as a society, right? Everything is subscription based, right? If if they take a movie off of your favorite streaming platform, then no matter whether you bought it or not, or even your album, right? If iTunes decides not to stream, Off the Wall by Michael Jackson or something, then that album's just gone. If you don't have the hard copy, you can't get access to it anymore.
Is that true? So if Apple loses, if you've lost, okay, so you go on and you buy Bad, right?
Yeah.
And then for whatever reason, Google Music, if that's the thing, Google Music purchases the licensing rights to Bad, and they say, F you to Apple, we're not going to let you sub-license it anymore. Even if you bought it through Apple iTunes, you wouldn't have access to it?
No, you would then have to go buy it through Google, which is ridiculous, right?
That is pretty ridiculous.
That is cattywampus, but that is the game. I've talking
Wait,
to
what happens then? So what happens if 10 years later, if Apple gets the rights back, do you get your original purchase? I wonder if you get your original purchase.
Yeah, back. I mean, as long as you would still have, it would still be in your, I assume, in your library, your catalog. You just couldn't play it. I know for people with the movies, like when on Netflix, like when Netflix loses a movie, they archive it. They remove it from your selection, but they don't remove it from the database, just in case they eventually get the rights back to it and they can put it back up. So
that's not really purchasing, though. Like, I wonder if it's different. Like, if you go onto Amazon Prime and you purchase the licensing, you buy a copy of Moana.
Well, yeah, it's the same thing with the movies. Yeah.
So if Disney says we are going to now go exclusive, because you remember years ago, they stopped issuing certain movies even on the Disney streaming, right? You couldn't get. I think The Little Mermaid for a while went away. Yeah. And so if you had a digital copy, it went away.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you had to watch it exclusively through the Disney Plus app.
But what if they say we're not even going to? But if they say we're not even going to, we're going to lock it out of even we're not even going to let it be available through Disney anymore. Well, Song of the South would be a great example. If they ever decided to release Song of the South, and then they turned around and said, "Whoop, that was a mistake." If you bought it, would you have access to it?
No, remember they pulled Song of the South down for a while, so you couldn't even.
I don't think they ever had Song of the South on digital though.
They had it on there, but they pulled it down and then they put it back up there with the warnings on it, right? So you'll see like all the Disney films now have all these culturally relevant warnings and graphics. These films were made. Bless you. Bless you.
I'm just showing off.
Yeah, you're good. These films were made in a culturally different time, and they may arouse cultural sensitivities or whatever the messaging is. But But yeah, man, that's just weird. Like I talked to a couple of guys, and they are actively buying hard copies of IP now because even like so say you had a first run copy of Indiana Jones, right? And in that first run copy, there was a scene that was messed up, right? And it only came out on VHS, right?
Mhm.
Well, when they released the digital copy on the streaming platform, they went in and fixed it. But you don't want to see that part. You want to see the one that was messed up because it made, it made the movie quirky. Well,
Oh,
you won't be able to,
Lilo and Stitch.
right.
Lilo and Stitch is a great example of that. You don't
Well, yeah,
want to see
yeah,
pizza boxes. You want to see her climb out of the dryer.
exactly. And you can't
Oh.
see that unless you buy that hard copy. So, but that goes into me putting my 10-4 hat on about where's the line, right? In media manipulation, because if you can go back and just change the story at any time or correct it, if somebody falls off stage or somebody hits a note wrong. I think what was it, Alicia Keys, when she was performing, she missed a note during the live performance, right? But when they went back and replayed it on the media later, they had digitally corrected the note so that the
Really?
missed note wasn't there anymore. And that created a big uproar. And they was like, why did you do that? You know what I'm saying? Why would you do that? And they was like, oh,
Yeah.
well, we didn't want her to